Hey, let's get your sea legs on, learn all about wine, and visit vineyards in this region of British Columbia. Sommelier and wine expert Sean Nelson will explain to us what makes the 9 BC wine regions different, with a special focus on our local area here of Vancouver Island and the Gulf Islands. Seattle in the United States and Vancouver in Canada are linked by air and ferry to Victoria, which is where we'll start our trip. Check my other videos for detailed information on the ship Cascadia. The islands in the Salish Sea here are divided into the San Juan Islands in the United States, and across the border is the Gulf Islands in Canada. We'll be leaving the port of Sidney on the Cascadia and spending 4 nights determined by weather and itinerary, hikes and visits to vineyards, and all our stays in interesting and quiet overnight locations. An activity board outlines what's coming up, and any questions can be readily directed to the crew on the bridge or anywhere else on the ship. Rain or shine, transiting or in a harbor, the hot tub on the top of the boat is always a fantastic place. The onboard chef prepares fresh and creative meal menus for every meal, and we'll introduce each other with a charcuterie plate and some seafood. And there will be wine, of course. We start learning about wine immediately from our sommelier Sean. Sweet dreams. After a delicious breakfast, we're off for a shore hike with expedition leader Alina. Explain to us some of the history, nature, geology of the Gulf Islands. This time of year is pretty wet, so we see some fantastic mushrooms and fungus, a giant banana slug, and we're back on board to hear a talk from one of the local vintners. In the afternoon, we take a bus to the Blue Grouse Estate Winery. This is accessible on Vancouver Island, and we get led through a flight of their delicious wines with their vintners. No sooner have we packed up, but it's back to the dock, grabbing our tender back to the night on the ship. We pass the noisy, smelly, and very entertaining sea lions that are all over the dock at Couch Bay. And besides dressing up, we see Maple Leaf's sister ship Swell, a converted tug holding 12 passengers, passing by. A shore walk on Portland Island, or Princess Margaret Island, is one of the Gulf Island reserves with lots of hiking and walks and campsites. And again, we see more of that incredible fungus, and it gives us a chance to get together and take a nice group picture on this day.
I want more popcorn!
That fungus was everywhere, and much of it was only showing up for 24 hours and would disappear. So we took lots of pictures, and there are many guidebooks back on the ship, which allowed us to try to figure out what it was that we were seeing, and the amazing power of Google Photos also could identify the specimens pretty well. A brief walk over some of the native clam middens on the beach, and we're back to bed. Night night. We're off to our next anchorage, and along the way, grab that hot tub. We also have some chance for some interesting shore walks. Narvaez Bay has a beautiful lookout where you can walk up to a high point and see the boundary between the United States and Canada and the big ships that are transiting between them. It's Halloween evening, and it was even more festive than normal, with crew and passengers dressing up in special ways for the occasion. A lot of thought went into the menu, with careful wine pairings explained by chef and sommelier Sean. And then our only bear sighting on this trip. The ship's tenders quickly got us to our shore walks, or allowed those that wanted to explore the areas in the bays without wanting to kayak a nice, safe and dry way to do it. Sommelier Sean kept us safe from pirates on this trip too, which was a second great service he provided. Along with the hikes, kayaking is very popular. The stable air-filled kayaks are very easy to paddle and safe for those that aren't used to them. The shoreline has often got lots of interesting character, from eroded caves to interesting birds and shore life. And you get to look in the gallery window on the Cascadia and watch chef at work. Guest Paula led us in some yoga classes to help make more room for all that food and wine. These bigger Gulf Islands are accessible by ferry and have pretty well developed roads and beautiful houses along them. Interesting lifestyle. Maureen takes us on a nature walk and explains to us more about the fungus and mycology of the area, pretty important ecosystems. Along with another great wine pairing and seafood lunch, we had visitors on the boat. People from the Rain Coast Conservation Foundation protecting important lands in this area on the Gulf Islands and conveniently next to the Sea Star Vineyard, which makes wines celebrating the ethos of the area. And after that fantastic West Coast lunch, we put on our West Coast wet weather clothing and take a bumpy, fun tender ride across the bay to the Sage Hayward Vineyards. This is a relatively new operation, rescuing older abandoned vines and buildings and turning them around.
Welcome to the winery! This is where the magic happens.
The very warm and energetic staff brought us to a tasting of their wines in the warehouse, and then on to a beautiful bistro and probably one of the finest eating establishments on Saturna Island. A dock and moorings makes this an excellent location to visit from a sailboat trip, or you can access it from land as well by the ferries. Our final night for chefs, complex dinner with great wine pairings. The big puzzle has engaged almost everybody on board to try to complete it before we finish the trip. The crew says its goodbyes and thank yous. And it's our final morning with kayaking, and like in typical West Coast fashion, we get a little bit of everything. It starts off with a beautiful sunny day and mirror flat water, and the kayaks get out there and circle around in the bay. Pretty soon it starts to pouring down, but we're dressed for it and we still enjoy ourselves, and there's even time for, when the rain slows down, grabbing a selfie in the kayak. We even saw some orcas saying goodbye that last morning. We learned a lot about BC wines and what makes them special and what makes this area special. We had some fantastic food. We had some great chats with the guests and the crew. We love talking to the people who are trying to make a business out here, which is environmentally appropriate and world-class wine. And the respect for the culture and the nature of the area was evident the entire time with our guests and with our speakers. Thank you very much, all of you, for making this a special trip.